All right, our section for today is going to be over sector area. Let's talk about what a sector is, 16.3 sector area. So yesterday we talked about arc length and how that was part around the circle and how that was part of the circumference. Well, we can probably make the easy connection here. Sector area is going to be part of the area of the circle. So what a sector is, it is just a region here bound by your two radii, bound by one radius here, another radius here. Okay, now they help us out in the book. They give us a shaded area to show, hey, this is the sector. Okay, we name a sector just like we do an angle with the three letters that make up the sector, and it's the letters that make up that central angle as well. So POQ in this example would be this sector. So the way we can actually find the area of a sector, since it's part of the area, we use our area formula. So area of a circle formula here. And then since it's just part of that area, we use M over 360. M is the measure of the angle. And 360 is the whole. So we do the part over the whole for that sector times the area of the circle. So two things we always need to find this. We need the measure of the angle, and we need the radius. We have those two things, we can find the area of a sector. So let's look at page 874, you'll find examples here. So for this first one, okay, it wants us to write these answers two ways. We're going to do is a multiple of pi, which is just in terms of pi. We're going to round it to the nearest hundredth, or two decimal places. All right, so for our first example here, we can see I have the shaded sector that we want to find the area of. Okay, we said we needed two things. So our formula for this was M over 360 times pi times radius squared. We need two things. We need the measure and we need the radius. Well, lucky for us, we have the measure of this angle and we have the radius. All we have to do is plug in from there. So the area equals 210 over 360 times pi times radius squared. So 210 over 360 times pi times 3 squared. From there, we can plug in our calculator. Now, if you don't have a calculator at home, you can use your phone calculator. It'll work just as well. Now, again, it wants us two ways. The first way said in terms of pi. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do 210 over 360. We're not going to multiply by pi. We're going to bring the pi symbol down. Times 3 squared. So 210 over 360 times 3 squared. If we go to our calculator, if you have a calculator, we can do alpha y equals enter 210 over 360 times 3 squared. We get 21 over 4. Let's make that a decimal. We can do 21 divided by 4. We get 5.25. Now the biggest mistake people make here when we're doing terms of pi, we do 5.25, but we forget we have to bring down that pi symbol. So it's 5.25 pi. Now remember, this is area, so we have to do our units squared. So this would be inches squared. Okay, so in terms of pi, we get 5.25 pi inches squared. Our second way said round to the nearest hundredth. So we're going to take that answer, multiply that out, round to two decimal places. So if we do 5.25 times pi, we get 16.493, so 16.49 inches squared. Okay, we're going to do the same thing here on number 12, or number 2. Now, one thing about this, when we're typing in our answers on these Google Forms, I know this is different. I don't think there's a way to type your pi symbol into your answer. So I'm only requiring you to do the decimal. So we can just type all of this in and get our decimal answer. Okay, let's look at the second one. Again, we have the same formula. All we need is the measure and the radius. We have our measure, we have our radius, we're ready to plug in. So we get area equals 131 over 360 times pi times 12 squared. All right, so since I'm only requiring you to do the decimal answer, plug all of that in together. Okay, we get alpha y equals enter 131 over 360 times pi times, what was the radius, 12 squared. We type that in. Remember, 2 decimal places, we get 164.619, so 164.62. Again, we have to do our units, so meters squared because it's area. Okay? Not too bad when they give us a circle. Now, sometimes they're not always nice like that, right? We have to maybe have a word problem. So we're going to look at page 875. Let's look at this. It says a beam from a lighthouse is visible for a distance of 3 miles. To the nearest square mile, what is the covered or the area covered by the beam as it sweeps in an arc of 150 degrees? A lot of times with word problems, if you can draw a picture, it makes this easier. So we have a lighthouse. Okay. And this lighthouse puts off a beam of light that it covers. And since it sweeps, it makes an arc. So if we were to make this go all the way around, it would make a big circle. Okay? But what it does tell us is it makes an arc of 150 degrees. And it has a distance of 3 miles. So this distance here, or this distance here, is 3 miles. So what we've essentially done is this whole thing here, this whole shaded area here, that is our sector. We want to find the area of that. I have my measure, I have my radius. All we have to do is plug in. So we get area equals m over 360 times pi r squared. So we get area equals 150 over 360 times pi times 3 squared. So we're ready to plug that in. Biggest thing here, make sure you know how it wants your answer. This time it says to the nearest square mile. It wants it as a whole number answer. Okay, so here we're going to do 150 over 360 times pi times 3 squared. We get 11.78. It wants it as a whole number, 0.7, rounds that up to 12. So it would be 12 miles squared. Okay, so 12 miles squared approximately, that would be our nearest square mile. All right, one more example and then we'll be done with this section of notes here. Still page 875, I think this actually says example A here. But it says a circular plot with a 180-foot diameter is watered by a spray irrigation system. To the nearest square foot, what is the area watered as it rotates 50 degrees? Okay, if you need to draw a picture again, you can. But again, we just need 2 parts, 2 things here. We need the measure of the angle, so that's going to be a degree measure, times pi times radius squared. Do we have our measure? It tells us an angle of 50 degrees. Do we have the radius? You got to be careful here. Make sure we're just reading. It says 180-foot diameter. Remember, diameter is just the radius times 2. So we could do 180 divided by 2 is 90 for the radius. So now I have my radius, I have my angle measured. We're ready to plug in. So we get 50 over 360 times pi times 90 squared. And again, it wants it to the nearest square foot, so it wants a whole number. So we type this in, 50 over 360. Times pi times 90 squared. Okay, it's going to give us a bigger number, that's okay. 3,534.2, so it stays 3,534. Okay, don't forget our units, that is square miles again, or miles squared. All right, I hope this helps. Again, we're just going to have to do this until we figure out something after spring break. I hope you're being smart and staying socially isolated. If you have any questions, text me on Remind or email me.